Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Vivid's Library. Today's topic is my personal favorite character of If Torn Muscles Can Heal, Why Can't My Heart? Punz. Today we're going to discuss his backstory, his trauma, and his relationships with the other characters. So starting off with his backstory, Punz was the son of two very poor people. They eventually got killed by their people they owed money to because they could not cough up the money they owed. And it left Punz alone with his four younger siblings. Since he was the oldest at 16, he obviously had to do something to, feed them. So he decided to become a mercenary. During his job as a mercenary, he made a lot of enemies. Mostly because he took any job he could get because he needed the money to feed his siblings. And on one of these jobs, he met Puffy. And, well, he tried to kill Puffy because that was what the job inquired, was kill what he thought was just a normal person. But she ended up nearly killing him, and he came back to his home to find out that his siblings had been killed by one of the many enemies he had made in his life. And so Puffy came, trying to figure out if the human was still, the human, aka Punz, was still alive or not. Because if he was, she was gonna try and, because she felt guilty, she was gonna try and fix him up. But then she found Punz passed out in his house with his dead siblings, and she took pity on him and she took him back to her coven. So Puffy took him back to her coven and turned him into a fledgling. And when he regained lucidity, Punz realized he couldn't remember anything about his past life. He couldn't remember his friends, his family, his siblings, his jobs. He only remembered Puffy because it was so traumatic for him, and fledglings are so sensitive to emotions and stuff. He realized, or his brain realized, that he wouldn't be able to take it, and he would probably try to, off himself by jumping into the sun because of the emotional distress he would be in. So it's kind of a good thing that he doesn't remember, but later on in the fic, it becomes a reoccurring thing where he regains his memory slowly and slowly. So for the first, I want to say, 15 years, it was just him and Puffy before she found Foolish. And Foolish hasn't actually got a fleshed out character yet. He's only been mentioned, so we'll maybe get a video about Foolish later. But Punz and Foolish hit it off. They were really close, and something in Punz's brain said that he needed to protect Foolish, so he tried his best, even though he was still a fledgling at this point. Punz was nearing the age where he could slowly be weaned off of Puffy's blood, even though it wasn't really recommended to wean that early. And around this time, which is roughly when he was 20 in vampire years, Puffy found Dream. And Puffy had found Dream when he was in a really bad shape. And Punz and Foolish were kicked out of the nest. Literally kicked out so she could dote on Dream. Because he needed somebody to be there for him because he was incredibly hurt. So he needed Puffy, but Puffy couldn't have her other two fledglings in there because the sense of distress would be too much for them to handle. So Punz and Foolish got kicked out, so they ended up staying together a lot more. And eventually when they got to meet Dream, Punz was head over heels. Like, that was his baby brother. That was who he needed to protect. That was who he lived for because he needed to protect them. And that's because Dream needed somebody to protect him at that age because he was 16 when Puffy found him. Okay? So he was little for vampires. So he needed someone to protect him, and that's what Puffy needed. She needed to protect Dream. And so that kind of wavered over to Punz, especially because I was her oldest, to take care of Dream. So eventually Foolish got slowly welcomed back into the nest, but Punz never did. He was never welcomed back into the nest because, in Puffy's words, he was too old to be clinging to her like a stray dog. He was too old to be wanting her blood and stuff, so he went to somebody else, which was Callahan, Puffy's sire mate, which was basically the term for sibling. Like, Nikki and Techno and Wilbur are sire mates because they share the same sire. So Callahan got turned into the vampire by the same vampire who turned Puffy. who has not been decided yet. And so Callahan took Punz under his wing, and eventually, when Dream challenged Puffy for leadership and killed her, Punz was finally able to see his little brother again, and he was over the moon with excitement because that was, his little brother. That was the person he was supposed to protect, the person who Puffy wanted him to save, who Puffy wanted him to be around so he could take care of him. Sorry for the mess up of my words. I'm not reading off of anything. I'm trying my best, okay? I'm trying. Callahan eventually got demoted from the second in command because Dream never really liked Callahan because Callahan never really imprinted or let Dream imprint on him because Puffy never really let Callahan or anyone else near Dream. She was like the only vampire besides Foolish that got to see Dream. And so with the spot now open, Dream let Punz be the right hand because that was his older brother. There was an instinctual part of Dream that loved Punz, but there was another part of him that wanted Punz under his control. There was a part that wanted Punz to listen to him. So he gave Punz the attention that he so desperately needed, gave him the attention he craved, but at a cost of complete and utter obedience. And Foolish broke that obedience. Because Foolish had turned Ainsley into a vampire. Ainsley had gotten lost in the woods near the XD Manor and had been found by Foolish when she was basically starving to death. Not wanting this kid to die, he turned Ainsley into a vampire despite the fact she was 13. So he took her back to Dream, and when Dream found her, he was enraged because Dream hates fledglings because he saw how much time his mother wasted doting on him instead of running her coven. So he wanted Foolish to get rid of her. But Callahan stood up to Dream and was defending Foolish, and in a rage, Dream lashed out and tore out Callahan's vocal cords as a punishment, which is why he's mute in this AU. Punz ended up having to separate the fight, and eventually Dream ordered Foolish to get rid of AMC, but instead of getting rid of her as Dream intended by tossing her into a vampire hunter populated area, he took her to the First Empire Coven. And he dropped her off in the woods, assuming Techno or Phil would find her, but they never did. Well, not in time enough for her to imprint on them, so she grew up feral in the woods. And how does this relate to Punz, you ask? Well, when Foolish left, he told only Punz he was leaving. And Punz tried his best to convince his brother to stay, but Foolish just couldn't, not without Amesy. And so that left Punz with Purpled and Dream and Tommy. So now we're getting on to his relationships with the other characters. Punz is very close to Dream, despite the fact he's being incredibly manipulated and he's being psychologically abused by Dream. Dream is using the fact Punz needs attention because he didn't fully develop against him. Dream is using the fact Punz needs to rely on somebody against him, and he's only giving him attention when it's something that can benefit Dream. Like, take Riker and Vigo, for instance. That's their type of relationship. His relationship with Purpled is slightly more healthy. Purpled realized that Punz isn't as scary as he seems and tries to get Punz to lighten up or just accept a playful attitude for some time, trying to get him to, act like a normal person instead of just a war machine. And because of this, Punz really likes Purple, really cares about Purple, and a part of him wants to turn Purple into a vampire, but he knows he can't because it's against the rules. So he just begrudgingly lets Purple stay a human, but he dotes on Purple as if Purple was his fledgling, to which he makes Dream very mad. And his relationship with Tommy was always rocky because he never really liked Tommy, but he was never outright cruel to Tommy either. And later in the chapter, we'll see their relationships, or not chapter, we're later in the fic, we'll see their relationships sort of flesh out. And lastly, how it psychologically damaged him. Not having his sire like he should have left Punz extremely emotionally vulnerable. It left him extremely susceptible to different types of manipulation because he needs that love. He needs the care. He needs the doting that he never got from Puffy because that was an extremely developmental era for him and he never got it. And that's all I got for this episode. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a really good day. And I'll probably make a part 2 of this, so look out for it. Bye!